Welcome to the deep dive. We're plunging headfirst into topics that, well, they really challenge our assumptions and hopefully spark some immense curiosity. Today, it's not about spinning tales. We're sifting through facts, looking at scientific discoveries, and some pretty strange historical anomalies.
Yeah, our mission today is really to explore some profound unanswered questions,
Yeah.
particularly around ancient texts like the Mahabharata. We'll look at compelling evidence, stuff from all across the globe. The goal isn't to give you the answer definitively, but maybe present discoveries that make you reconsider what we think we know about history.
And that history we accept, it's not always as rock solid as we think, is it? I mean, take Alexander the Great. Huge figure, right? History 101. But did you know there's almost zero archaeological evidence for him, like tangible proof he existed?
It's true. Everything we know pretty much comes from just three historians, Strabo, Arrian, Plutarch. And they were writing, what, 150 to 400 years after Alexander supposedly died?
Exactly. Yet he's firmly in the history category, not mythology. So it kind of sets the stage for questioning these accepted narratives, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. So for this deep dive, the core questions really become, could the Mahabharata have actually happened, the events described? And those fantastic weapons, did they exist? How could ancient people possibly have had that kind of science, that kind of technology? And then there are the giants, the Devas, Asuras, Rakshas described in the text. What about them? But maybe to really get into that, let's look at some global mysteries first, things that push the boundaries.
Okay, sounds good. Let's start with maybe the most iconic, the Great Pyramid of Giza. I mean, the scale is just immense, 457 feet high. That's like a 45-story building. And the standard story for ages has been it was built around 2550 BC by Pharaoh Khufu. As his tomb.
Right. But what's really remarkable is that the pyramid was originally sealed tight. Its actual original entrance was only found maybe 50, 60 years ago, hidden behind a rock wall. It was completely inaccessible until around 800 AD. That's when Muhammad al-Mamun, the governor of Cairo, decided he was going to tunnel in. He was sure there was treasure inside.
The robber's entrance, they call it now. The one tourists use.
That's the one. But here's the kicker. When his team finally broke through, after immense effort, they found absolutely nothing. No inscriptions on the walls, no mummy, no treasure, just bare stone. It must have been a huge shock.
Wow. Okay, so if it wasn't a tomb in the traditional sense, why build this colossal 45-story thing, especially with such, well, weird internal structures? You mentioned the passages.
Exactly. It's a maze inside. Tunnels going off at these really unconventional angles, nothing in a straight line. Take the Grand Gallery. It's incredibly steep. Today they have a ramp for tourists.
Right.
But 150 years ago, when it was first properly explored, no ramp. How would you even get a body, a sarcophagus, up there? And like you said, some tunnels are tiny, 2.5, maybe 3 feet high. You literally have to crawl.
Doesn't exactly sound like a dignified funeral procession, does it?
Not really. It just makes you ask, why?
Right.
Why build this huge structure with these complex, hard-to-navigate passages if it's just a tomb? And then you have those shafts, those tunnels. Some from the king's chamber point straight out to the sky. Others, from the Queen's Chamber, were explored just about 15 years back with robots. And they found they were blocked. Why? What was their purpose? It just deepens the mystery.
Okay, so the pyramids challenge the tomb idea. And it's not just Egypt, right? You mentioned other places, like the Sphinx.
Yeah, let's talk about the Sphinx. Again, the accepted history puts it around 2500 BC, built by Pharaoh Khafre. And it's enormous, truly colossal.
But there's a challenge to that date.
A big one. In the 1990s, Dr. Robert Schoch, he's a geology professor at Boston University, looked at it differently. See, you can't carbon date the stone itself. It's millions of years old.
Yeah.
So Schoch did geological tests on the erosion patterns, on the Sphinx, and crucially, on the walls of the enclosure it sits in.
And what did he find?
Something pretty shocking, actually. His findings indicated the erosion wasn't just wind and sand. It was caused by heavy rainfall, prolonged heavy rain.
Rainfall in the Egyptian desert.
Exactly. Significant heavy rainfall hasn't happened in that part of Egypt since maybe 5,000 or 6,000 BC. Much, much earlier.
Wait, if the erosion is from rain, that means the Sphinx itself must have been carved before that dry period started.
That's the implication. It pushes the date back dramatically, maybe 8,000 BC, even 10,000 BC.
Wow. Okay, that completely changes things. Because back then, according to standard history, humans were, well, supposedly quite primitive. Cavemen, stone tools.
Right, so the critical question becomes, who built it? Who had the organization, the technology, the science to carve this massive statue out of bedrock thousands of years before we thought possible? It just doesn't fit the timeline.
Okay, let's hop over to the UK. Stonehenge, another icon. Accepted date, around 2400 BC. And again, the engineering. It's just mind-boggling. We're talking about lifting stone blocks weighing 70 tons upright.
Huge blocks, and then placing other equally heavy blocks on top of them, 30 feet up in the air.
How on earth did they do that?
Well, it's not just the lifting, which is already incredible. It's the joinery. They use techniques like mortise and tenon joints. Basically, a projection carved on the top of the upright stone fits perfectly into a hole carved into the underside of lintel stone on top, locks it in place.
Like woodworking, but with massive stone.
Precisely. And on the sides, they use tongue and groove joints, like fitting jigsaw puzzle pieces together. Imagine trying to align all these joints top and side simultaneously with 70-ton blocks, 30 feet off the ground. The precision required is immense.
And didn't they need cranes when they reconstructed parts of it in the 1950s?
They did, modern cranes.
Yeah.
Technology that simply didn't exist, as far as we know, back in 2400 BC. So, again, how? How did they achieve this level of engineering? It really makes you wonder about the capabilities we attribute to people back then.
Okay, from massive stones to something maybe more subtle but just as amazing, you mentioned whales.
Yes, let's go to Bryn Celli Dudu. It's an ancient burial chamber. Looks like a mound with a passage leading inside. And the entrance is specifically aligned. It faces northeast.
And there's something special about that alignment.
Oh, yes. Every year, between December and April, that's winter in the northern hemisphere, the rising sun is in the northeast. And the sunlight shines directly through that entrance tunnel, right into the heart of the chamber, illuminating a single stone pillar inside.
That's pretty cool.
It gets better. The pillar itself isn't actually in a direct line from the entrance. The light has to reflect off the chamber walls to hit it, and the walls are lined with quartz. They act like a parabolic mirror, focusing the beam onto the pillar.
A parabolic mirror. 5,000 years ago.
Seems like it. And look closely at the pillar. There are grooves carved into it, notches.
Okay. So what are the notches for?
Here's the incredible part. Every single day, from December through April, as the sun's position changes slightly, the focus beam of light hits a different notch on that pillar. It starts at the bottom in December and climbs day by day, notch by notch, to the top by April.
Wait, are you saying it's a calendar?
An incredibly precise 5,000-year-old astronomical calendar built into the structure using reflected light.
How could people back then design and build a parabolic reflector and such an accurate astronomical device?
That's the question, isn't it? It challenges everything we assume about their knowledge of physics, astronomy, engineering. These aren't isolated flukes. They seem to be part of a pattern of unexpected ancient sophistication.
It really seems like these examples point towards, well, maybe ancient people knew a lot more than we give them credit for.
Which brings us to that theory you mentioned earlier about an ancient global civilization. Right. People like Graham Hancock started proposing this maybe 20 years ago. The idea that there was a globally connected civilization, quite advanced in science and technology, long before our standard timeline suggests.
And the theory goes that something wiped them out.
Yes, the hypothesis was a global cataclysm, specifically a massive flood event somewhere around 12,000 years ago.
Mm.
And what's fascinating now is that recent science is actually providing some really compelling evidence that something like that did happen.
Really? Like what?
Well, there's strong evidence now for a comet impact around 10,900 BC. Not one big hit, but fragments hitting multiple places. Geologists find this specific layer, called the Younger Dryas boundary layer, all over the world dating to exactly that time. It's full of markers of an impact, nanodiamonds, melted silica, that kind of thing.
And what would an impact like that do?
Catastrophic effects. It likely destabilized the huge ice sheets covering North America and Europe at the time, caused massive melting, leading to rapid sea level rise, a global flood, essentially. It also seems to have triggered huge volcanic eruptions. All that ash in the atmosphere would block sunlight, causing temperatures to plummet.
Is there evidence for that temperature drop?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Greenland ice core data is incredibly clear on this. You see temperatures rising as the ice age is ending, then bang, around the time of the impact they drop sharply. A mini ice age, basically, that lasted for about 1,300 years. This provides a really good explanation for why so many large animals in North America suddenly went extinct around 12,000 years ago. The climate changed drastically and rapidly.
Wow. So a global cataclysm around 12,000 years ago isn't just theory anymore. There's hard science pointing to it.
It's looking increasingly likely, yes.
And this ties into human history, too, beyond just wiping out a hypothetical civilization.
Well, consider this other discovery. In 2008, archaeologists were digging in a cave in Siberia, Russia, the Denisovo Cave, and they found a tooth a human tooth, but it looked really big.
How big?
The surface area was about 2.5 times the size of a typical modern human tooth. They didn't know what to make of it at first, so they sent it off for DNA testing.
Yeah.
The results were astounding. It wasn't Neanderthal. It wasn't modern human. It was a completely new, previously unknown human species. They named them Denisovans after the cave. And they lived around 30,000 to 40,000 years ago, a distinct branch of the human family tree.
A whole new human species. That's incredible. What else did we learn about them?
Well, three things really stand out. First, genetics. Turns out about 2.4% of the DNA of people living today in certain areas, think Southeast Asia, Papua New Guinea, Australia, is actually Denisovan DNA. We interbred with them.
So they're part of our ancestry. Okay, what else?
Second, an artifact found in the same cave layers dated to 30,000, 40,000 years ago. A beautiful bracelet made of polished stone, believed to be Denisovan work. The amazing part is a tiny hole drilled through it, only 1 millimeter in diameter.
A 1 millimeter hole. How?
Exactly. Scientists analyzed it and said basically the only way to make such a precise tiny hole in that type of stone without shattering it is with a high-speed drill.
A high-speed drill 30,000 years ago.
That's what the analysis suggests. It completely challenges our ideas about Paleolithic technology. And the third thing, just as we have Denisovan DNA, the Denisovans themselves had DNA from another, even older, undiscovered human group. The human story is getting much more complex.
So we have evidence of ancient catastrophes, lost human species, and technology like high-speed drills existing tens of thousands of years ago.
Yes. These discoveries paint a picture of a much richer, stranger, and technologically more diverse ancient past than we previously imagined. It shows people existed with skills and knowledge that just don't fit the simple caveman narrative.
Which, I guess, brings us full circle back to the Mahabharata. With all this context, the questionable dating of accepted history, the evidence for lost technologies, ancient cataclysms, how do we look at the question now? Did the Mahabharata happen?
Well, look, just like with Alexander, there isn't an archaeological site you can point to and say this is where the Kurukshetra War happened. There's no direct smoking gun proof. However, when you see the kind of engineering in Stonehenge, the astronomy of Bryn Celli, the sheer scale and mystery of the pyramids, things we know existed but struggle to explain. And when you learn about things like the Denisovan drill, it makes the descriptions of advanced knowledge or powerful capabilities in ancient texts like the Mahabharata well, maybe not quite so far-fetched. Less like pure fantasy.
Right. The context changes the plausibility, perhaps.
Exactly. If people 5,000 years ago could build parabolic mirrors, or people 30,000 years ago potentially had high-speed drills, then descriptions of advanced science or weaponry in a text, thought to originate from that deep past, maybe deserve a second look. Remember, we still can't perfectly replicate the Great Pyramid today, not with all our modern tech. So who's to say what was or wasn't possible back then?
And you mentioned ancient Indian texts themselves containing advanced knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. We're not just talking about structures. Look at the Sushruta Samhita. It's a medical text written probably around 1000 BC. It describes complex surgical procedures, brain surgery, plastic surgery techniques. There's a flap technique for nose reconstruction described in it that's basically still used today 3,000 years later.
Wow. And geometry, too.
Definitely. The Sulda Sutras. These are texts in the first millennium BC focusing on geometry needed for constructing Vedic altars. They lay out geometric principles, including what we call the Pythagoras theorem, long before Pythagoras. They even calculate the square root of 2 to a remarkable degree of accuracy.
And this wasn't just theory, they used it.
Oh, they absolutely used it. Some of those Vedic altars were incredibly complex. Imagine one with 4 layers built from 196 different specifically shaped bricks. You simply cannot design or build something like that without sophisticated geometry. The Bodhayana Sulva Sutra, for example, gives the theorem and calculates root 2 as 1.414215.6, which is incredibly close to the modern value. This is practical applied knowledge.
Okay, so advanced medicine, advanced math, and geometry, it's clearly there in the ancient Indian record. What about the giants? The Devas, Asuras, Rakshas, that still sounds pretty fantastical. Does any of this new human history shed light there?
Well, it's obviously speculative, but think about the Denisovans. We know they had these unusually large teeth. It suggests they were likely, pretty big people overall, physically robust. Now, am I saying Denisovans are the Rakshas from the Mahabharata? No, absolutely not. That's a huge leap. But the discovery that there were different physically distinct human species walking the earth, some potentially larger or more robust than us, it perhaps provides an interesting new lens, doesn't it? It makes the idea of encountering beings different from ourselves, maybe larger, seem a little less like pure myth and more grounded in the possibilities of a complex human past we're only just starting to uncover.
It certainly adds another layer of possibility. It seems the main takeaway here is maybe we should hold our assumptions about the past a bit more loosely. We hope this deep dive has maybe encouraged you, listening, to challenge some existing beliefs, embrace that curiosity. The more we find out, scientifically, archaeologically, the more it seems history is full of compelling mysteries.
That's absolutely right. Science is constantly pushing the boundaries, opening new doors to understanding our past, and it keeps revealing that there's just so much more we don't know. The past isn't a closed book. It's still unfolding, and frankly, that's incredibly exciting. There are still discoveries waiting out there.
So maybe the final thought to leave you with is what other unanswered questions are waiting for us? If we start looking at history, even at myths and ancient stories, through this lens of new scientific and archaeological discovery, what else might we find hidden in plain sight?